saying here at the table that all of a sudden we've lost our 401k. It's been a week. So let's let this play out. I mean,
Does the president have all of his marbles? This is a quote. Their concern is that the White House is not acting rationally, but rather on ideology. A few have quietly wondered if the president might be insane.
Market, in response to Trump's Liberation Day, declined more in 3 days than it has at any moment since the financial crisis.
Yes, everybody says the economy might be going into recession, Abby. I think it might be close, but we're not in a recession at this point in time. And
I was talking to somebody today that was literally the doctors put them on blood pressure medicine because they were looking at their 401k.
Oh, God.
Like, this is having real life consequences for folks. Some people.
So I went to the store, my local Giant. It was $4.35 for eggs. So eggs have gone down. I think the problem that I see with
I guess what the point was, the latest report was that for March they spiked back up to a high. There's a bit of a delay between what's in those reports and what you see in your grocery store. But
and for me,
that's what
like my pocketbook is what I see, my wallet is what I see in the store, and I know that when I went literally on yesterday, the cost of eggs were actually down.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this panel. This is incredible. China's just making fun of Trump now. You have business leaders in the U.S. are now just questioning if Trump is insane or not. This is unbelievable. Let's check this out.
Signs are the economy and American confidence in it are waning. Consumer sentiment sank 11% just this month. It's down more than 30% since December. The future of bond markets has one of America's most respected economic voices, Jamie Dimon, spooked. He is warning that there will be some kind of, quote, kerfuffle. And when that happens, the Fed will have to intervene. The speed and the sharpness of the American economic retreat is so quick and so pointy-elbowed that Wall Street is having a think. Here is the thought that is troubling investors the most. Does the president have all of his marbles? This is a quote. Their concern is that the White House is not acting rationally, but rather on ideology. A few have quietly wondered if the president might be insane. That's a real quote. Joining us in our fifth seat at the table is Natasha Sarin. She is the president of the Budget Lab at Yale and a former Treasury Department official in the Biden administration. Natasha, the White House is basically saying, don't you worry, everything's going to be all right. But the markets, I think they're also just kind of ignoring also what has happened the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday. The markets are still all over the place. And we're getting some pretty stark warnings. I just want to play real quick what BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said this morning. And he's pretty crystal clear about where he sees the United States and the world heading.
Yes, I do believe we're probably starting, if not, we're in a recession. The United States, post-World War II, was a global stabilizer. We are the global destabilizer.
Right.
Now, Larry, that's a very hard thing to say. Long term, I'm less worried about some of these issues, but in the short run, I'm petrified at some of these issues.
Petrified. Is that the sentiment?
That is the sentiment, and it's a totally understandable sentiment because you're in a situation where the stock market, in response to Trump's Liberation Day, declined more in 3 days than it has at any moment since the financial crisis. You're in a situation where this White House announced a pause on tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, but in reality, the tariff rates that exist today with the higher tariff on China at 145% and a 10% reciprocal across the board tariff, they mean that we're basically in the same place that we were a week ago. And the market feels that, and not just the stock market feels that. The thing that's kind of terrifying and why you have Jamie Dimon concern and Larry Fink concern is that at the same time as the stock market isn't doing well, you have the bond market not doing well. And what you have is a real concern that the dollar, which typically in moments of economic distress and economic turmoil, people fly into the dollar. They're like, the dollar is the safe asset of the world. American dollar dominance, the currency is strong. People are actually moving away from the dollar because of this instability. And I think that's really concerning. And I think, frankly, the consumer sentiment numbers show you that the American American people feel that's really concerning, and they feel it's really concerning after 2 days of incredibly good inflation data.
Should the White House be transparent that Trump is willing to sacrifice the economy in the near term for his longer term ideological goals? Because that seems like what is actually happening here.
Well, he's not sacrificing.
Oh my God, he's about to say he's not sacrificing the economy. All right, we'll get to that idiot in a second. Guys, a little bit about me. I went to school for business. I went to grad school for finance. And I'll tell you that consumer sentiment, it's almost certainly leads to a recession when those are low. And if it consistently stays low like that, we're almost certainly, I mean, Larry Fink already thinks that we may be in a recession. It's a pillar. It's foundational to an economy. If you don't feel safe or willing to purchase things, that affects the stock market. That affects everything. People start buying less everything, less groceries, less electronics, less going on trips, less going to the movies, less eating out. It literally crashes the economy. Companies feel the same sentiment. They don't want to expand. If anything, they may be forced to lay people off if they feel or realize that they don't have enough cushion to protect them if a recession hits. And in fact, they will already be hit by the consumer sentiment. As consumer sentiment stays low, they will be selling less, which will force them to lay people off. Then what further happens, companies will start decreasing prices in hopes of increasing demand, which also leads to less income, right? Operating income, have to lay people off. And this whole thing about they're wondering now if Trump is insane, really? It's just now we'll get to that in a moment because I have a lot to say about that.
Sacrificing the economy, Abby, when you hear trust in Trump from Carolyn, 77.3 million people voted for Donald J. Trump. He's been talking about tariffs for a long, long time. The rollout of the press conference, Abby, I might disagree with the way it happened. And I can say to myself, you know what, maybe we should have put the 90-day negotiations first and then come back and put tariffs if there's no negotiations.
That's an idea.
So that's kind of an idea.
A great idea.
We kind of agree on that. However, look, we've got a situation now where, yes, everybody says the economy might be going into recession, Abby. I think it might be close, but we're not in a recession at this point in time. And I think that's why President Trump's pro-growth policies are very, very important. And we're going to talk more about that here at the table. But DOGE, lowering taxes, lighter regulations, there's a lot that can be done to improve this economy real quickly.
Can I just say one thing about lowering taxes? So it's true that the president campaigned on this pro-growth. We're going to do a lot of tax cuts. We're going to extend the Trump tax cuts. But in reality, what's been imposed by this administration through this trade war that he kind of unilaterally ignited is the largest tax increase on American families in modern history. The average family, as a result of these tariffs that are in place, is going to face price increases of $4,800. Those are calculations I've done with my colleagues at the Yale Budget Lab. It's going to start happening over the course of the next months ahead. And the reason why it's going to start happening is these tariffs are now in place. You're in a situation where Chinese goods are facing extraordinarily significant tariffs, and the result of that is that textile prices are going to go up by 70% in the short run. Consumer electronics, things like your iPhones or your laptops, prices are going to go up by double digits. And the American people, it's so shocking to me, all of this, and perhaps you all can help shed some light. I'm confused by it because, if anything, the 2024 election was really a referendum, at least in part, on inflation. And consumers felt the pain of higher prices. And so why this administration has decided that it wants to execute a trade war that's going to do exactly that. It's going to raise consumer prices. It just seems kind of surprising.
That is the question, right?
Look, the president...
And I always have to say this. That was one of the reasons, right? The economy, inflation. But let's just be real. One of the big reasons was because of Trump's cruelty and the way he talked about people of color, for example. The way he talked about women and his supporters talked about women. They despise them. No wonder these same people can't understand why they won't also date them Guys, like attacking people of color, immigrants with this whole cats and dogs thing. Now they're showing people, Hispanic, undocumented immigrants, some of them of which were legal American citizens, with their heads shaved off. They were okay with all this cruelty, running around the White House taking pictures down of black people and people of color. Could you imagine if Kamala did that, running around the White House taking pictures of all the white people, all the white faces in the White House? How insane that is. You wouldn't think she's insane then? Think about that. What it takes for someone to just remove all the pictures of black people. It's like their disgusting racist eyes couldn't bear the sight of seeing greatness or something that he will never achieve. This, and I have more to say about this insanity, but this is not only why he won. He won, yes, because of the inflation thing, but a lot of it was because of the cruelty and how he treated other people. And now these same people who are okay with all of that cruelty are now getting bit. Oh, what a surprise! Maybe you should vote based off someone's character as well. Maybe it's not a good idea to vote for the vile racist fascists.
To want to boil it down to one thing, he won the election on the price of eggs.
Yep.
Right? That's
All about
real.
the eggs.
All about the eggs, all about, your mom and pop pocketbooks. And what they're doing has not helped with the price of eggs, has put the price of, as you said, basically almost everything up, while Americans are watching their retirement funds dry up because of the stock market. I can't tell you how many people have raised their fears of not being able to retire to me over the past couple of weeks. That's real, and it is not what people voted for, and that's why you're seeing so much outrage at the town halls the Republicans used to have. Make no mistake, they've stopped being in public.
So in addition to all of this, what I think, one thing that's interesting is looking at the tourism numbers. There's some data coming out about Europeans traveling to the United States. It's down, according to this, by 35%. To me, that is a combination of a lot of things. It's like the United States just being a weird place right now. Like people are just like, what is going on? Concerns about just traveling to the US and getting plucked off the street by immigration officials. It's a lot of things, and all of it started with Donald Trump. So again, to your point, Trump campaigned on making the United States the economic envy of the world, and the world is basically saying, we don't want to come here. We don't want your dollar.
I think you're right.
Like all of that.
I think that, look, Donald Trump did run on tariffs. I hope, yeah, he did. I think and I hope, though, the American people thought he would be a little more responsible in the application of it. I don't think tariffs are wrong across the board. I think they can have a utility. But the aggressive tenor of which is he applied them to destabilize the market, to really hurt. We heard about working class people. I was talking to somebody today that was literally the doctors put them on blood pressure medicine because they were looking at their 401k.
Oh God.
Like this is having real life consequences for folks. Some people work their whole life just with the hope and a prayer that they can retire because of their 401k. You're taught that that's the responsible thing to do. Well, we need our leaders to be responsible too and not just mismanaging. Everything's not going to happen at once. But I do think, you said people voted for it. I don't think people voted for their draining of the 401k. I don't think people voted for prices to go up. I don't think people voted for short-term pain. And the question is, will it be a recession? It is a luxury to say we are not in a recession now. But the fact that we have to say now because of the behavior of our president, I find that problematic.
Well, you're a business owner.
You're for tariffs. You're okay with tariffs, so 10% across the board for you are okay?
I think if he wanted to really get into a negotiation with China because of national security issues, he didn't have to put them on islands where there were no humans. Like he could have done it in a much more surgical way, just like he could have done DOGE in a much more surgical way. The approach is whomp, just take it out. And most likely when you destabilize things like that, it's hard to bring it back. And the people who are at the margins, the people who are lower, are not even just in the lower socioeconomic status, even the middle class, they suffer.
Abel, as a business owner,
It's because Trump is a moron and he has this like bully mentality. Guys, if you want to stand and fight back against China, there's certainly some threats there. But you do it strategically, and not only strategically, you do it with the help of your allies. You don't just isolate everyone and put tariffs on literally our biggest trade partners like Mexico and Canada. Like, this guy's just an absolute moron. Now all those countries are working together. Countries that never worked together before.
just real quick, as a business owner, are you worried that consumer demand is going to start to drop because people are worried about what's going to happen the rest of this year?
Abby, I'm a supply and demand kind of a person. I think that's how business operates. So 10% tariff on products, I don't have a problem with if it brings back American jobs.
I'm just talking about people buying what you're selling, right? And when families start to feel like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, maybe I might have my job, maybe I might not get that bonus, they're going to start to cut back.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Abby, like for example, California is kind of in a different island because California is a specialty crop state where you have all the vegetables. Now the Midwest is a totally different ballgame where they sell to China. The farmers in the Midwest and in the South, they are connected to free trade, to fair trade, so it affects them
Aren't
more.
Aren't those Trump voters?
Right.
Yeah, no doubt, no
Those
doubt the Trump
soybean
voters.
farmers are terrified.
But we're all saying here at the
Terrified.
table that all of a sudden we've lost our 401k. It's been a week. So let's let this play out. I mean,
So
look,
let me say, I'll just say this. There were some good news that we could be talking about. You know, the inflationary numbers, the gas prices are down. And I'll say this, and we've talked about it on the show before. $8.99 were the price of those eggs. A few weeks ago, I went to the store, my local Giant. It was $4.35 for eggs. So eggs have gone down. I think the problem that I see with
I guess what the point was, the latest report was that for March, they spiked back up to a high. There's a bit of a delay between what's in those reports and what you see in your grocery store. But
and for me,
that's what
like my pocketbook is what I see, my wallet is what I see in the store. And I know that when I went literally on yesterday, the cost of eggs were actually down. I think the problem that the Trump administration has here, it's you know, one of these things is that people talk about. They say that Donald Trump, this is something that he's talked about for years. And I think that that was more of an experiment. It's one thing to talk about it, but it is another thing to actually do it. And I think in Donald Trump's case, many of the things that he's talked about, you know, you have the White House press secretary and many people saying initially, well, these are no negotiation. These things are permanent. Then it kind of moved to, well, we're going to negotiate a little bit. And if you listen to what Donald Trump said earlier this week, and he also said it, I was watching CNN earlier, about an hour ago, Donald Trump, when asked the question about the markets, he said himself, he said, well, I responded to that. Because they were having concerns about the market. So Donald Trump himself, he's not consistent in what he's saying. And I think that
very
this
much
was more
so.
of an experiment.
You know, in order to
He's just trying to find any way to give him some credit. At least he's pushing back a little bit, but like, stop giving this guy credit. Stop giving him leeway. Push back. This is how this country is going to fall. Could you imagine Kamala doing any of these things and all of us, or even me here, standing by it? Yeah. And supporting Kamala, putting a tariff on the entire world and trying to spin it as something good? Would you guys take me as credible or viable in any way? I just so confused how this works on Republican voters. They're just so tribal. They hate the other side so much.
negotiate, you got to have a negotiating partner.
Yes.
And China has said, no, thank you. Here's the meme from the Chinese embassy. You give the bully an inch and he will take a mile. And then they tweeted out basically a cartoon mocking Trump, basically saying, don't retaliate or you'll get rewarded. And I mean, the Chinese are, first of all, not taking Trump's calls.
Right.
They don't want to call him, and they won't take his calls. They're also saying they are going to fight to the end. I mean, Natasha, I feel like the history has told us they can absorb a lot of pain. They have a completely different political system that allows for that. I don't know that Trump has factored that in.
And honestly, you saw the Chinese saying today, these tariffs are a joke. It is like comical what the administration is trying to do. And you're in a situation where we are in a trade war at the moment. So you've seen retaliatory measures by the Chinese and then ratcheting up by us, and they're committed. And to your point, Abby, they have a lot of political capital that is going to enable them to be able to push and to be able to withstand a lot of this pain. The question that I have that sort of keeps coming up as we talk about the Trump trade wars is a lot of the conversation, and what the Trump administration has said is, you know, this is short-term pain for some end. And genuinely, I do not understand what the objective is, what we are seeking to accomplish here. Because if what we're seeking to accomplish is we're going to use the revenue from the tariffs to do tax cuts, and we're going to revitalize American manufacturing, what that is going to require is permanently high tariff rates at levels that this country hasn't seen in the last century.
All right.
And also
we gotta
a
hit
real
pause.
plan to where are these manufacturing jobs going to exist. There's no
And who's
plan
gonna
to
do
create
that?
them.
And what are
Exactly.
they?
Yeah.
To be continued.
Again, those jobs are not coming. And any jobs that are coming are going to be done as much as possible by robots. And the only ones that are going to get rich are, of course, the super rich people running those companies. This is just incredible. I'm tired of hearing about manufacturing coming back here. This is not the economy we're in anymore. We have to stop lying to people, train them for the jobs of today and tomorrow. Stop making people think that we're going to be in horse and carriage or have these gigantic factories like we did 60, 70 years ago, whatever, how many years ago. Just stop lying to people. And they're right about China. China's a different country. I mean, guys, look at the labor practices they have over there. They've been here for 5,000 years. They're not going anywhere. They're willing to do things that we're not willing to do. And they, at this moment, are looking more favorable than us right now on the world stage. This is how you lose world power status. These idiots talk about America first, America first. It's going to be America alone. It's going to be America first because there is no second and third. Everyone else is just going to completely isolate themselves from us. And guys, let me give you my spiel here. I just can't help but think about this. It was driving me nuts hearing what they were saying. Like, really, Trump crashing the economy with these tariffs is what made these greedy pieces of garbage and some of these Republican pundits, a very few amount, finally realize that maybe Trump is out of his mind. Like, think about it. They were completely okay with all the cruelty against others. Now that they're caught in some type of crossfire, now he's out of his mind. He wasn't out of his mind when he was running around saying Kamala wasn't black, that she slept her way to the top, and that Haitians are eating cats and dogs and other pets even when told that was not true. Could you imagine if Kamala was elected and did this? Hired the richest man in the world to run around with a chainsaw and fire people's jobs, cutting services, firing with just the stupidest mistake, like the people watching over our nuclear weapon stockpile, trying to cut Social Security and calling it a Ponzi scheme. Again, picture Kamala doing this. Kamala running around the White House, taking down pictures of white people in the White House like Trump is doing with black and brown people. And then imagine Kamala doing a tariff on the world with our allies included. They would be calling treason. Think about what would be said about her. They would be out there with pitchforks or, in fact, tiki torches, because we know how much they love those. This is incredible. That they're finally starting to realize. So you're finally starting to see a little pushback that maybe this guy's insane. And guys, I just want to say one thing, kind of unrelated, but definitely related to the economy. You're going to see a lot and hear a lot about numbers. Again, I'm a numbers guy. If the market, let me give you a way to see this. If the economy is at 100, right? The S&P is at 100, the U.S. stock market. and that drops down by 50%. Now it's 50. If the next day it went up 50%, we're not back to where we were. We're only at 75 now. You would have to go up 100% to reach back to where you were at that 100 number. Right? It's much easier to drop in value than it is to increase. Right? If again, think of the number 100. If it dropped by 50%, you're at 50. If it increased by 50% the next day, you're at 75 only. That number has to increase by 100% to get back to where we were. Math can be a little deceptive sometimes. But this is the stuff that these economists and investors, and this is what you're seeing in the stock market. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this. I think this is just insane. This whole thing about they're starting to finally realize that Trump is insane. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. That is almost that especially. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Really helps get the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.